executive consultants, you're welcome. Today we are here and we are going to specifically look at a Uganda Revenue Authority domestic tax service application. And it's going to be one that is needed by potential suppliers, potential bidders from entities that have probably put up the advertisements and they make it a prerequisite or it's mandatory for them to have this service provided to them before even applying for putting their bids physically or electronically. So which service this? The service is the tax clearance certificate, which is also known as the TCC. Now, what is a TCC? A TCC is an official document that is issued by Uganda Revenue Authority as proof of filing and paying taxes. So it is one document that is going to show the people that probably want to take your bids or you want to supply to that you and taxes, you are friendly and you are a good taxpayer. So URA will simply notify them at your application. So when you apply to URA, then URA will probably send them after URA verifying that you do not have any outstanding tax liabilities, and then you'll be good to continue with the process of providing services or bidding for whichever bid they will have put across. So today we are going to look at the requirements and the process of us we need to go through to apply for a TCC in only less than 5 minutes, like we will see later on. But for now, let us get to know what is this TCC, where do we find it, where do we find its authority, and we find the authority in the Income Tax Act amended 2021, section 134. And it basically gives us the reasons as to why one would want a TCC. And a few reasons may include one who wants to provide transport for passengers, one who would want to transfer funds abroad, but that fund is in excess of 50 million shillings. But when you check in the act, they have 2,500. But when you multiply the 2,500 currencies with the current, with the rate of a currency, which is 20,000, you will be arriving at the 50 millions. And the other reason might be you want to supply goods to government, and the government will have to know if this person who this bidder is a good taxpayer. So you are able to let them know after them approving your application, sorry. So the TCC can be two ways. It can be an annual TCC or it can be a transactional TCC. An annual TCC is one that you're going to get and you will be using it throughout the entire financial year, whereas a transactional TCC is one that you're going to use once on every single entity that you're applying for. So the annual TCC basically has a provision that for you to get one, you must have been monitored by Uganda Revenue Authority for at least the last 3 financial years. And by monitoring, I mean you must have been filing and paying your taxes properly, and URA has been really not having any issues with you. And if you qualify, then they will give you an annual TCC. But if you're a business and you're just new into the game, then you may apply for transactional TCC. So where do we find this thing called TCC? URA came on board and then it came up with the e-tax, which e-tax has been providing us with e-services. So we don't have really to go to the URA offices, whether at Nakawa or any other offices located elsewhere in the country. So you can apply for a TCC at your office, from your home, or anywhere, provided you have internet and you know what to do, like we are going to see right now. So where do we go to apply for a TCC? After us logging in into our accounts, we will simply scroll down under the ECC and we look for tax clearance certificate. When we'll find it, we'll click on it and they will bring for us the tax clearance certificate acknowledgement form. This is the form that we are going to submit later on to URA, and then they will give us feedback after 2 to 3 working days. And the feedback can be a rejection or approval, respectively. If it is a rejection, that means you have some tax liability that you need to deal with before they can approve. And if all is well, then they will give you an approval and you will be allowed to continue processing with your business. So the form looks like this, has 3 sections: the applicant's information that is already captured in the system, and then the type of TCC and the TCC period. So let us find out what is under the type of TCC. As for now, we only qualify to get a transactional TCC, not an annual TCC. So we'll select the transactional TCC because we want to carry out this transaction with a company, with an entity that has put up an advertisement. So when we do that, then they are going to open for us for the details of each addressee. The reason that's why they're telling us details of each addressee is you can add up as many addresses as possible. That's why if you do not want to spend a lot of time applying, and then you're having a separate application for the different organizations, you can apply for them at once, and then you'll be getting feedback after 2 to 3 working days. So the details of each addressee, they of course ask for the TIN of the addressee of the TCC, and this means we need to put the TIN of the addressee or the TIN of the company that would love to put our bids, or the company that would love to supply to. And I would take, for example, I want to supply to Uganda Telecom Limited, but we do not know their TIN number. So we'll simply come back to to e-services, and then we look for taxpayers or search for taxpayers, and they'll bring for us the page. And we will need to be sure, is Uganda Telecom Limited, is it a non-individual? It's an individual, and by the name it simply qualifies to be a non-individual. So we'll simply select 10 for non-individual, and then we'll come for the trade name, and then we'll put Uganda Telecom. When we do that, then we'll press search, and then after the search, they will give us the TIN for Uganda Telecom Company Limited, and then it's one that we will use when we come to our TCC. So we will come to TCC, and then we simply come back here, and then we put in the TIN number for Uganda Telecom as 0. So after us putting in the TIN number, we don't need to fill in these other things, because mere pressing of the cursor in any of the boxes around, they will automatically autofill the rest of the areas for us. So we now come to the purposes of our TCC. Perhaps we want to provide transport services using a goods vehicle, and that's what probably Uganda Telecom Limited advertised for. So we'll simply click here, and then we'll say add. So when we say add, we can scroll down, and then the next thing would be for us to get to know which tax period for which the TCC is required. Because we are in 2021-2022 financial year, it is advisable that every time you apply for a TCC, you always take on the current financial year. So we are simply going back to the very first date of the financial year, which is 1st July, and it runs up to 30th June of the 2022. So it's simply say, okay, and then we'll be ready to go. So after doing this, then you can press submit. But because it's a tutorial video, I will not press submit, because I'm not intending to get a TCC for particularly Uganda Telecom Limited. But then in case you have more than 3 entities that you want to get information from URA as regards to your tax liability, then you can still add on another one by simply still coming here, and then you put the TIN number of the addressee, and then you still do the same thing. Let us try more with one more, and that will be, let's put in the TIN number, and then you'll see how we will be getting the information of this addressee. Like I said, you press in the middle, and then you will be getting the addressee now is going to be Uganda Electricity Transmission limited. So this time around, maybe we don't want to put any of these purposes. So you would simply say others, and then you put bidding, because this time around you're bidding, you're not getting any of these put up here for us. So you would simply say add, and the moment you press add, then you will have gotten yourself all the entities that you want. So you can keep on doing that for as long as you can, because you don't want you to go through all the hassle of applying separately for each entity. And once all that is done, you can press submit and you get feedback. Like I said, sometimes they will look at the threshold of 10 millions. If you have a tax liability of more than 10 millions, chances are high that you will not be allowed to be given a TCC, or your application will get a rejection, but it does not qualify me who has a liability of less than 10 millions to get a TCC. However, as of last year, Uganda Revenue Authority put up provisions for cases where I have a liability, but I want a TCC. And one of them was to come up with a formal arrangement of installment payments, or to still pay on that very day I'm applying for the TIN number. But we don't need to go through the provisions. Let us keep our tax clean, so that every time we need a service from URA, we do not have to first of all go back and pay penalties, because we are supposed to be good taxpayers. Executive consultants, good evening.